What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here, and we are here with our first video of the On the Ground series. And rather than subject some random person to the first video of this series, I thought, why not bring you guys along for a journey of my practice round preparing for my first tournament whilst I'm in the middle of huge form change? Because like, what could go wrong? Throughout today, I'm gonna bring you guys along through this practice round and show you kind of the questions that I ask myself while I'm in the middle of a practice round. And it's similar questions that I'm gonna be taking people through as we do these practice rounds and as we find ourselves in the midst of tournaments. Because I think that if we can get our mind in the right sort of ideal place, or we can be thinking about the right things, it's a lot easier to choose the correct shots, which leads to better scoring, which overall is just gonna make it a better experience for everyone involved. So like I mentioned in the intro, I'm in the middle of form change right now. So when it comes to a backhand, I kind of have like no idea where it's going, but I'm playing my first event of the year, which is an unsanctioned ice bowl here at George Ward Park on Saturday. So I'm very curious to see how this goes, and yeah, well, we'll see what we're thinking. Let's head to hole one. So our first hole coming in at 220 feet, it's gonna be tucked off to the left. You can see the silver or the gold disc catcher. It's the silver basket just short of that off to the left of the hole. Now there's a series of questions that I'm gonna ask myself on every single tee box because I think that it gets me in the right mentality. The first question is always gonna be, what does this hole require? What shot shape does this hole require? And for this hole, I would say for the right-hand player, it is looking for a pushing hyzer. You don't want to fade out too much, but you do need a little bit of bite at the end of your flight. But I think a trap that a lot of people get brought into is throwing too overstable of a disc because they think about too much of the hyzer. Whereas if I just really throw a straight shot and I avoid the low ceiling just before the basket, it should still work out okay and leave me like a 20-footer at most. The second question that I'm going to ask myself when I'm on the tee box is, do I have that shot in my bag? And I think that at 220 feet, I definitely have that shot in my bag. So I'm going to pick a disc that pulls off that shot for that hole. If I don't have that shot in my bag, then I'm gonna start thinking about other options and what's the next best step I can take to execute well on the hole. The other thing that I'm gonna do on all of these is I'm gonna throw multiple shots on every single tee box because I wanna make sure that first, I don't just throw one really good shot and think, oh yeah, I have this hole dialed, ready to do that in the tournament. And the second is that I want to experience different types of lines because my brain may naturally go to this disc for this slot when actually I can throw it easier with another. So first disc that we're gonna throw is kind of our in between those options, and it's my beat-in straight pig. I'm gonna put it on a little bit of hyzer and just kind of put it straight up the fairway is the goal, and see if it can fade off over to the basket. That is outside of an ace, almost perfect. That feels really good, but I want to experiment with two other options just because once again, I'm not all focused on, hey, I threw that one really good shot, so everything is perfect. But I'll talk more about that in a second. Second option I'm going to go with is that more overstable option. Gives me a little more room for error because I can swing it wide. I'm going to go with a Glow Kinsei by Discmania Discs here. See if we can't hang it wide. Okay. That one is also really good. And then our last is probably the easiest because the hyzer flip is one of the easiest ways to get distance. We're gonna go trash pan to inner core. A lot more hyzer than we threw that pig on, and let it stand up right straight. And then because it's not the most understable disc in the world, I don't think it's gonna fall all the way over, especially if we started on enough hyzer. Get left side of the box, that way we're throwing the hyzer. And I don't even think that's gonna be that bad. We definitely were a little left, a little bit of an early release on the inner core, but I think it's gonna be good. As we can see here, these are where our three discs landed and all pretty much in very close proximity to the basket. So I think we made the right choices and we have some very repeatable shots for us for this hole. Another thing that we wanna make sure we're doing during our practice rounds is actually practicing some putting so that we keep that loose and ready for the tournament as well. Practicing tap-ins like this, while helpful, isn't necessarily like, oh man, I got those dialed for the tournament, so I'm ready to go. I'm about to be a boss when I throw my 4 footers into the basket. I would say something like this, which is a 10 footer. You definitely want to be practicing these because these tap ins are the ones that frustrate you the most, especially 10 footers. And then we can come out here to a 15 footer, 12 footer, whatever. And we want to practice those because especially this is an ice bowl. So experiencing what I'm experiencing right now where my hands are extremely cold, if I don't warm my hands up properly, as you can see, we missed one of those. I would have been incredibly frustrated, and I know a lot of people would have been frustrated if they stepped into this event and you had a putt like that and you missed it. But it's all about having the right tools. So I'm gonna make sure that we bring some hand warmers and stuff for this event. I don't know how well you can see my hands, but like they are definitely pink. So yeah, we're gonna see what we can do. All right, so our next hole coming in at 186 feet. It is down and to the right, silver basket. Hopefully you can see it tucked away there. With it being a dark and dismal winter day, these silver chain stars are gonna be rough, or Mach 3s or whatever they are. Okay, 186 feet. What does this hole require? I think this hole requires one of two options, really. I think you can go the backhand turnover because there is a sloping green. So if you come in on too steep of a hyzer, you're definitely gonna sail down the green, and that could lead to a host of issues, but you kind of got to decide, do you want a uphill putt or a downhill putt? That kind of an option. Also, are you going for an ace run on this? If you're going for the ace run, kind of running right at it is definitely a play, but you can't do that with a forehand. However, 186 foot forehand should be a pretty stock shot for me. So I'm gonna pull out a pig for my first option because I think that the forehand hyzer up the hill and just letting it nestle and trickle down, using the slope to my advantage to give myself a shorter putt, is the play. But I also, throwing forehands when it's freezing cold and I can't feel my fingers can be an issue. So we're gonna test that out on this first one. Yeah, not being able to feel our fingers, we definitely yanked it, but that's the beauty of the forehand, is that if we yank it high, we leave ourselves either in a range to lay it up because we threw it way too far off, or we leave ourselves in a range of, you saw how high that went on the hill and it still made its way down to the basket. Option 2 is going to be the aggressive run. We'll see where we're at. Something I should mention is that this is George Ward, and if you watched the video a couple of weeks ago that we did with Gentry and Noah throwing 250 feet, that's the front 9 of this course, and since we just had that on the channel, for this practice round, I'm only showing the back 9. We're gonna go polecat here, so that if I find myself and I'm like, I need to start playing aggressive to make a push in the event, I can go for the polecat ace. So we're gonna go backhand turnover, kind of right at it. And that is an example of, yeah, once again, it's cold. I can't stress that enough. When it gets cold, conditions are gonna change, our grip's gonna change, things are coming out loose, and I cannot get enough pop on the disc. So turnovers, probably a really bad idea in this weather. So this is one of my favorite parts about practice rounds, and something I think people don't do enough, especially in practice rounds, is getting the feeling of running the putt. So it's downhill, we're probably about 30 feet away, 35 away from the basket, but because it's so downhill, that's gonna feel a lot shorter. So I'm going to, on this hole, the putt that I wanna practice, is I wanna practice this run so that in case I do throw that forehand, which will probably be my play, and I'm high on this hill, I have the chance to still feel what it feels like to run this. So a lot of things people do on downhill putts is they're gonna throw it really high, they're gonna throw it straight out in front of them rather than kind of down at the basket. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, so those were our 2 misses. We're okay with that. That's not it either. Yeah, we let them both hang right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to make our comebackers, get that confidence that we still can save the 3 even if we decide to run it from up here. All right, so to apologize to our audience at home, this hole doesn't film really that well just because it's pretty downhill. It's very tight tunnel-esque, so I'm sure that it's not gonna look phenomenal on camera, so I apologize to everyone. But we're coming in at 247 feet. It's very downhill though, so I would say that it plays a lot more like 200, 190, somewhere in that range. When it comes to a super short downhill hole, the common mistake I think a lot of people make is that they throw it way too soft and way too high. We're okay with the start stall shot, but if we're gonna throw the stall shot, we have to make sure we're not throwing too overstable of a disc, because it's gonna stall and then it's gonna fall and bite really hard, which could give us way too much to get past the basket. So what does this hole ask for? I think this hole asks for exactly that. You're looking for a stall shot is the first option. It's gonna go straight down this tunnel. It's gonna get about 200 feet, and then it's just gonna drop and die. We're gonna use the downhill to our advantage and fall off to the left. I think another option here that some people might consider that I don't think is that bad is the really, really understable forehand, throwing it up and letting it roll over to the basket. I think that's actually totally okay, especially with this tight of a tunnel. A lot of people get freaked out about hitting this gap right off the bat. Third option is actually gonna be a really wide hyzer. You're gonna go right of this initial tree and let it kind of fight through all that. Now that is pretty poke and hopey. It's gonna bring a lot of options into play. So we're gonna live in playing to both. Like I said, I think you can throw too overstable of a disc down this tunnel, down this gut. So we're gonna try to let it stall, because the miss is that we would rather be straight. I do think that we have this shot in the bag. So we're gonna go inner core. I'm gonna throw it on a decent amount of hyzer, but I'm not gonna throw it soft per se, but I'm not gonna try to mush it down there, because the glide of this is gonna actually come to our advantage a lot. Just trying to push it, give it enough power so that it actually flies rather than just fluffing it on down there. Here we go. That's gonna be option one. Oh, and there is our mistake. So when we don't throw an overstable enough disc and we yank it, it has literally no hope of getting all the way back. So that's exactly what that one did there. My inner core is already getting kind of beat in. For those of you asking like how it flies when it gets beat in, it does get understable as it gets beat in. Thankfully we have some freshies. I'm gonna use this Glow Sensei. As y'all saw in the first hole, it's got some overstability to it, but it's not like crazy beefy. I'm actually gonna try the overstable line and see what we get. Problem is those trees come into play really fast. So I'm gonna try 2 more shots. We're gonna try both of those again, though with pigs. So we're gonna go the overstable one first. I'm gonna put it on more hyzer. Yeah, I don't really like that line. It's so poke and hopey. Here we go. Nope. Okay, so none of these really that good. A lot of them hit early, hit first available, which kind of showcases even our worst mistake was ripping it on down the hill, and that still is far past the basket. So that'll be a great time to talk about attack holes as we get a long approach. All right, so we're about like 110, 115 away from the basket. I think I could go with a pig on a forehand and let it fall in. Problem is a lot of invisible branches on the left side, so I'd be afraid to like actually let it hang out and get over there. So I don't think that's gonna be it. I think this is gonna be just a flick of the wrist upshot with the polecat. But this is a great time for us to talk about attack holes. So what do I mean by attack holes? I think that a lot of players will walk into an event believing that they have to birdie every single hole. When they step up to the basket, they are thinking, what does this require? And how do I get this disc next to the basket at all times? And I just think that's bad, especially when we embrace the way of the playa from Golf Sidekick, when we say that we're playing for par. I really believe that what we need to do is we need to look at the 18 holes that are on the course, and we need to pick 5 to 6 that we say are attack holes. And on those holes, I'm going to play possibly a slightly more aggressive line. Not so aggressive that I'm going to go for a birdie and it's going to bring a bogey into play. If that's the kind of line you're playing for during a tournament round, especially if you find yourself in MA4 or MA3, which are the novice and rec divisions, I would say making that decision is a bad decision competitively. But we're gonna pick 5 to 6 holes that we're gonna say, hey, this is a little more aggressive. Like I said, we're trying to get after it. I am trying to put the disc next to the basket. A great example would be the hole that we just played. If I was trying to play the more aggressive line, that would be more of, per se, the ace run, trying to go at the basket, knowing that I might sail past and the 2 may not be on the table per se, but there's a really high chance that the 1 or the 2 is in play. For every other hole, I'm going to walk into it totally content if I get a par. That is totally good with me. And this is a hole that I think is a great example of a trap hole. It's downhill. It should be super easy based on the distance, but because it has a tunnel shot, because you're dealing with extreme elevation, I think a lot of people can get trapped into this, hit first available, kick off way to the left. Now they're trying to make a savior shot over to the basket, and it just gets bad really fast. Whereas if I walk into this hole and I'm completely okay taking a 3 on this hole and knowing that a 2 is possible, I'm not saying that on non-attack holes that you can't get a birdie, but we aren't walking into it thinking that's the game plan. So let's look at some numbers looking at the planned attack. I always tell people that if you're like, man, should I mark this or not? If you have ever thought during the walk up, should I mark this or not? Just go ahead and mark it, because you're gonna be in your head the whole time about, hey, whew, I really wish I had that extra foot. Not that you need it, but if you tell yourself or you let that thought creep in, you do need it that hole. So let's look at the normal according to plan. If I get the birdie on all 6 of my attack holes, get the birdie on that, I par everything else, congratulations. You just shot a 6-down round with really low stress. Let's say that you go better than according to plan, you get all your attack holes, and then a couple holes surprise you and you were playing it for a par, but you threw a really good tee shot, ended up getting a birdie on it anyways. Great example of that would be probably this next hole. I'm not really super like, oh, I gotta get it, but it's quite possible for me to get a quite easy birdie. Congratulations, you might be 8 or 9 down. Things don't go according to plan, and let's say you only got half of your attack holes, but you still parred everything else, well, boom. Next thing you know, you shot 3 down. Playing for par and accepting par and viewing a few of the holes as the I got to get them holes and taking everything else as not detracting you from your goal of getting under par makes it way easier to score in golf, rather than walking into all 18 opportunities and being like, I have to throw the aggressive shot all the time. And when I do that, I bring birdies into play. Our next hole coming in 293 feet. It's going to be this silver disc catcher, not disc catcher, the silver chain star on the other side of the creek over there. So I think the obvious shot is going to be sort of a backhand hyzer that just holds really straight and then falls at the end. Once again, we don't want a ton of overstability because then we could crash into the creek or the ravine. There is water in that is OB. Walking path is also OB. So I think that's the initial shot. And then anything else just feels really sketchy. Like trying to split that gap does give you a straight look at the basket, maybe on a turnover or a forehand, but we have the shot that the hole's asking for, so that's what we're gonna throw. So first thing that I'm gonna look at is I'm gonna take my Mac Farrell Fission reactor. I'm gonna put it out there basically flat, let it fade in. That's the goal. Really, it's just we'd rather push straight here and then have it fight back just a little bit. We don't want it hyzering out immediately. So although I say flat, probably gonna put it on hyzer, who am I kidding? What did I say? Splish splash, I was taking a bath. So now we're gonna go understable. We're gonna try that same line, but because we wanted to release it on hyzer, we're gonna lean into it. I guess we have a little bit of a tail end as well, so that's gonna make it more overstable. We're gonna go Midnight Proud 2. Since we seem to want to throw hyzer, that's okay. I think that's gonna be a game time decision actual day of the tournament, because that's a great example of the Midnight Proud 2 was a really good shot, but what was I thinking? I was thinking put it on hyzer, throw it straight. If it falls back in, that's fine. I don't wanna look at the shot and say, oh, that's the shot, check. I wanna look at what I was thinking when I threw the shot. That's what I wanna write down and remember in my head. Creek, be unkind. Yeah, it was, recording it, I literally said to the camera, all right, so the water's OB, whatever you do, don't put it on hyzer. Like, we'd rather be straight than anything else. And then it came out of my hands and immediately was on hyzer. Sometimes we try to talk ourselves into discs that are just not it. Okay, so lots of, looking at the layout, lots of short options here. 192 feet. It is a silver chain star that's just up there. This is super uphill. Now, usually the play for me when I go uphill is that I want to make sure that I am throwing something understable to help me fight that. But at 192 feet, I think actually playing some stability, I can get some big skip forward on the basket, because really what the shot's looking for is really the exact same shot that we had on hole 12, which is that straight down the gut stall shot that falls off. And what a lot of people don't think about is we spend so much time trying to learn how to throw the disc nose down, get that nose angle down, that we forget that actually throwing nose up can can allow discs to get more overstable, hit up and stall and fall when we throw uphill. So we can use that to our advantage sometimes. So we're gonna try to throw this Justice somewhat nose up, let it get around that tree that's shaped like this, and then fight in. If it cuts in before that tree, 9 times out of 10, it's gonna get really far left and leave ourselves like a 25-footer. So only thing to worry about is that Mando on the right, which when we don't really know whether the disc is coming out can be a problem. Here we go. Oh, yep, okay, so remember that thing where we said if we go inside that tree? But we're gonna try a reactor. A little less stable. That's a big ask out of that, but I'm gonna put it on some hyzer. Here we go. Okay, we flirted with that tree. That might be the play. I think that is easier to execute than the Justice. The Justice, I have to get on so hard to get it all the way up that hill. So glow reactor has more stability than that reactor that we just threw in the water. But once again, that's okay on this hole because we like the stability of it. So the reactor is just left of the basket. So that's gonna be somewhat of a gimme putt. But as you've seen all video with these Lunas, sometimes they're really glidey and other times I feel like they're just rocks falling out of the sky. And that's not to say something bad about the Luna, just inexperience on knowing how much pop I gotta give it, especially even at short range putts. So these long range putts are honestly the hardest because I don't know when is too high that they actually get that 3 fade and when I can just hold it straight. There it is. Woo, Justice putt. Too much juice. Too much juice, my guy. Another thing with new putters is that I think part of the reason why these Lunas aren't the most reliable thing in the world is because they're still new. Ooh, so much road traffic. So, we take that. Okay, so this is a hole that's super interesting because the tee box is facing this way. And what the hole probably is asking you to do to get to that silver basket that's down there on like a little peninsula is it's probably asking you to throw a backhand hyzer as a right-handed player or a left-hand turnover. But I'm not sure if trees have dropped over time. As long as I've been playing this has been here. And I remember as a newer player, this gap used to stress me out because it was just like, I can just throw a backhand hyzer out there and be super safe. But I'm literally not even showing you that angle because at this point, I can't remember the last time that I was playing to this island location and I didn't go right here. So you can either go backhand right at it, or you can go forehand and really kind of hang it at the bridge and let it crash in. This is a peninsula green, so there is water all around it. And as we saw on the other hole, the water's murky. So I think I gotta be confident here. Make sure I put this out straight over the bridge and let it crash in. 235 feet. We're going pig. We have the forehand asked of us. Here we go. Oh, that's so bad. That needs to get over early. Okay. I'm pretty confident didn't even make it over to the other side. So we're gonna have a long look at it, which you'll see that here in a second. We're gonna go war pig. Probably gotta put it, actually, I'm not gonna put it on any extra hyzer because that's fine. That needs to drop fast because that's, okay. We found some dry. Okay, so I think what happened on both of those shots there is my bag was right here, which actually kept me from walking back into it. So we just gotta commit and be further left and trust the flight of the disc. Alrighty, we landed on a shelf with the basket right there. So that's not ideal, having to putt through the trees, but we'll see what we can do. Our other one you can see is over there on the safe little shelf. Okay, Mike Strauss spin putt coming in with Lunas. Ha ha! Okay. No, that's a toughie. That's a toughie. Yeah. That's a real toughie. I think we could have gone like over the top. Definitely think we could have gone over the top. Those were a lot better runs. Over the top was the play. Okay, I think we've proven today that no tapping is safe with me and the Luna yet. So definitely gonna tap these out. Okay, here we go. Foundation, Trash Panda Mini. Haha, in the words of my gal Hannah, get the best of both worlds. Okay, do have to actually like commit on the putt. There you go. Instead of just letting it like fall out. Where the laziness comes in of us missing these putts over and over again, these tappers, is that we let ourselves get lazy once. And really we let ourselves get lazy during practice rounds. We don't teach intentional habits. All right, so that last hole was definitely an attack hole for me. And I think that's something to note is that especially in MPO, I've had to change my mindset over the last year of playing in open, that when it comes to this, it's really less of how many holes are attack holes, because in open, it feels like an all-out sprint at all times. But once again, I say that so that you know of like future planning. Truly, if you're watching these videos for anything more than sheer entertainment, odds are you're not playing in open. So don't take that advice. Like, don't feel like you've got to play everything aggressively. So definitely I'm still trying to get this. I think that this is an alternate position. So this was not how the hole was originally designed. So you got to like kind of shift your mentality with when they shifted it to here, what were they thinking? I think the backhand hyzer does exist. Really touchy. You got to have something super stable and get lucky through some trees. There is a straight through a gap, but that hill I think could come into play because you think low ceiling of these trees could mess with it. I hope it doesn't come into play. And I think the other option is the forehand up over everything. Problem with the forehand, you pull it too far left, you're gonna be on the outside of those holly bushes, tree things, and that is definitely death in jail. So I think we're gonna go, it calls for the backhand hyzer right up it, which is the boldest shot, not even a hyzer, just a straight backhand throw, easiest shot in disc golf. So, and a surprising turn of events, we're gonna go inner core. This fills the slot of my precious child pig in the bag, which you can tell it was my precious child based on how many times you seen me throw the inner core. Wow, those words were hard. I think we're okay turning it over a little bit. Fading out to the left is bad. What did I just say, Crawford? Okay, we faded out to the left. I think it's a little much for the polecat, but maybe if we just full Cindy's. Actually, polecat may be perfect. We'll try the forehand just to see, but there's a wind coming off of the hill, so it's tricky. It's not a hole I'm familiar with, so that's why we wanted to throw several. I like the forehand. It's the most comfortable shot. It feels the most like immediately less risky, but I don't think it's the best shot. All right, let's survey the results. Forehand here on the hill, because every time I get to this basket, it is shorter than I give it credit for. Like, that polecat felt perfect, and yet the polecat was still long. Polecat is inside the tree line all the way back here, so that's tough cookies. You gotta give this thing so much pop. The inner core, found it to the inner core of these trees. That is gonna take a second to find and is not where we want the slot to be, or where we want the shot to be. So, well, I found it. All right, coming in at 166 feet. Looking through this, we've got a decent amount of like long holes on the front, but the back nine is going to be very birdie or bust. So it's a good thing that we love our short game, and that short game approaches are not necessarily like formal backhands. So the front nine might give us a lot of trouble, but the back nine we should be able to stick with what we do and what we know. 166 feet, it's off to the right. Calls for really a big forehand or a big turnover if you don't have the forehand. Only reason I don't like the turnover is you kind of got to throw it up, and then it's dicey with OB lining that whole left side. Forehand is pretty stock, 166 feet. I think you could get away with not doing a run up or anything like that, but I just always feel more comfortable if I'm throwing an approach or something, and you could view this as an approach. Sure, it's all about like how you mentally want to do it. When I'm on a tee box, even just like a little classic casual stroll, because it's uphill, probably gonna play closer to 200. Let's see how this goes. Hung it wide, but that's still gonna be fine. That's gonna be a 25, 30 footer. We'll throw the turnover just to feel it with the polecat. We've been trying to get this thing, we haven't thrown a good turnover all day, so. All right, plenty of juice on that one, so we'll take that. Let's bang a putt. This will be our first like real big tester putt of the day. About 20 feet, so shouldn't mentally be too much of a tester, but I call this our first tester of the day, even though we hit that big putt on 14, because honestly, walking into a putt like that one on 14, it's not like I'm trying to tell myself that, man, you're never gonna make a putt like this, but I'm certainly not upset with myself if I miss that kind of a putt, because that's a far putt, dude. Give yourself a little grace. I think that we are a little too harsh on ourselves on the putting green, especially if we're not great putters. Our last hole coming in at 228 feet. If I were to drop an arrow, it's like there, down the hill. Basically throw it straight up this fairway, let it fade off is what the hole is asking for. I think you can honestly throw a really straight shot and the slight bit of downhill at the end, it's gonna let the disc drop. A lot of people, the issue they're gonna come up with once again, and we've seen this trap on the first hole of the video, is that you wanna go something overstable and let it fade over. It's just not the play. I think that we forget a lot about throwing downhill options. As a quick aside, how many of y'all, when I film these things, I'm running and gunning the whole time. How many of y'all, when it's cold, you forget to hydrate? Woo. All right, so do we have that shot in the bag? I definitely think we have that shot in the bag. I'm actually gonna go with the polecat here, not the inner core, because I think that I want the easy glide to pop up, ride straight, and then come down. The inner core, in order to get it to pop all the way up, I gotta throw it in a little more hyzer, and it's been somewhat stable today in the cold. We've had several times where, besides that whole downhill hole, where it just got over. Right down the middle gut. Yeah. If we flirt with that tree, that's fine. Notice like it never really hyzered or faded or anything like that. We're gonna throw the inner core just in case. This I'm gonna throw a little more flat. Whoop. Okay, that wasn't it. Let's go. I'm just trying to beat this guy in, the sensei. We'll go flat on you too. Oh yeah. But it's a stable daddy. That actually, I am very curious. That felt really good, just getting over on it, because it has enough stability. I literally thought like a little bit of Annie because it's overstable and it should fight out. But knowing that we can pull it right, I'm very curious. Very curious. Okay, so this is where the polecat landed, and we have about a 20 footer. Woo! This is where she landed. I mean, that's a proper ace run. Look, I think this may be our guy. We'll try it first round, see how it goes. We'll see how we're feeling. We'll see how we're feeling. Because this is still a birdie. Yeah, this is still a birdie and a shot that we're confident in and comfortable with. So, oh, come on, pole kitty. Ride the chains. Almost that spike. Ooh, almost forgot our inner core. Gonna have to go back and get that one. All right, well, that is gonna wrap things up for our practice round. Stay tuned for next week, where I'm gonna hopefully have someone following me during my tournament round, so that you guys can kind of see expectations on what actually worked, what didn't work, things like that. Because I really do think that it is one thing to go into a practice round, have the right mentality and all of that. It's another thing entirely to execute in the middle of a tournament, especially when things may not be going according to plan and all of the sorts. So hope you guys are super stoked for that. If this is kind of the thing you're looking for in on the ground and you want to see me do this with other players, I am excited to see it. What are things that you think we're missing during this round? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will be happy to try to improve this series as we go on. As always, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing rest of the week. But for now, we're gonna leave you with the birdies.